Okay, obviously I know nothing. I don't have any social media. I know nothing about this, so it seems like you guys can see this normally, and hopefully now there's no echo. Hopefully we got this under control. But either way, I'm gonna give it a shot. If not, I tried my best, guys. Tried my best. Okay, if you do log on while I'm doing this, and you and everything looks normal, can you just say something like it looks normal, or it's fine, or whatever? Then I'll know that we're good to go. But I'm gonna go ahead and just get started here. Again, assuming that you can see what I'm writing. So we're talking about number 17 on the correct homework page, 135. Um, Again, if you did the other page that I accidentally told you in class, no harm done. You will not get points taken off. Um, it's just some random page we haven't done yet. So you were probably very confused and hopefully not too stressed out. But we're going to go ahead and do number 17 and a couple more of these because I know we were struggling with it in class. So I'm going to give you a little help on the homework if you need it. All right, number 17. So in class, we talk about there are two ways that you could do this. I definitely believe that one way is easier at certain times and the other way is easier at certain times. However, you have to be familiar with GCF, LCM, finding common denominators, the LCD. You have to be able to do long division for the other one. So really, I'm going to show both. If you can do both, then choose which one's easier at the appropriate time. If you right now can only work with fractions, then let's just work with fractions. If you can only work with decimals, let's just work with decimals because decimals are fractions. So if you can get them in the same format, you can um, order them. You can figure out which one is greater. So number 17, we have 14 eighteenths and 7 ninths. There's a couple ways we could look at this. This one, we see that 9 is a factor of 18. Okay, so since 9 is a factor of 18, well, then I can just multiply it by 2. And whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. Whatever you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator. So we see that 7 ninths is the same thing as 14 eighteenths. So that tells you that this inequality is actually an equality. They equal each other. Um, so that's just finding a common denominator, and it's always easy if you can see that one denominator is a factor of the other. Okay. Um, let's. Do I want to skip to 20 and talk about this? Let's see. I am. I hope it's not confusing, but I want to stay on this topic with fractions. So I'm actually going to do number 20, and it's comparing 4 different fractions. Okay. So let me write them here in case you don't have your book with you. 1/6, 2/5, 3/5, and 3/7. There's some common sense we could use here. We can see which ones are less than half and which one is obviously greater than half. But if we wanted to work it out as fractions, we would need to find an LCD, which is the least common denominator, if you remember from what you did last year. And the way you do that is to find the least common multiple. So we could list some multiples out. That's definitely one method. Move this up. Or we could do the factor tree, right? We have 6, 5, and 7 as our 3 numbers. So we could do the whole factor tree. 5 and 7 are already prime. That's helpful. So we could also start listing multiples for this. But if you remember how we find an LCM using 3 different numbers and a factor tree, you have to multiply what they have in common and then also the leftovers. So just by knowing my 7s and 5s and 6s, I know that it's going to be a while before I actually get a common multiple. So if you were going to do this, we could say 7 times 5 is 35. So we'd list all these out. They have nothing in common, so we're only multiplying leftovers. This is 35. And you're going to see, this is why this is not my favorite method. But we have 35 times, we could do 35 times 2 if we wanted. Doesn't matter what order, commutative property. And 210. Now, we're not going to do it like this, and this is showing you why fractions is not the best method, in my opinion. Because you got to say, well, what do I have to do to 6 to get 210? And what do I have to do to 5 to get 210? What do I have to do to 7 to get 210? And then you have to do the same thing to the numerator. So let me show you the decimal way and see if that is more helpful. Okay, so fractions are decimals. And decimals are a representation of or a result from division. So 1/6 is like saying 1 divided by 6. And I'm going to go a little quick through this, but we add a decimal because 6 doesn't go into 1. It goes into 10 one time. We subtract, we get 4, and we bring it down. Now, to save time, we talked about this in class a little bit. I'm not going to go further than this first digit because we're supposed to be ordering this from least to greatest. So if this is the least, then I don't even have to work any further. So I'm going to do 2 divided by 5 here. And 5 goes into 20 4 times. So we already know that 1/6 is less than 2/5. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to say 3 divided by 5. And 5 goes into, we're going to add our decimal. 5 goes into 30 6 times. Well, look, our first place value, the tenths is our first place value for all these numbers, and they're all different. So that's very helpful. And then I could do 3 divided by 7. And 7 goes into 30 4 times. So we have 2 numbers that have the same tenths place. So we are going to have to dig a little deeper to see which one is smaller or which one is least. So if we work this out, this goes in evenly. So there is no hundredths place. This one does not go in evenly. When you multiply and subtract, you get a 2 left over. 2 is less than 7. We bring down a 0. And 7 goes into 20 2 times. So here's where we're going to stop. And I know this can get confusing. That's why I'm going to be patient. We're going to take our time working through these. But how you compare fractions, decimals, percents is making them all the same format. So if it's fractions, they all have to have the same denominator. It can be difficult. In decimals, we just make them decimals, and we look at each place value. They all have a tenths in the for the first place value, and 1 is the least, and it was 1/6. So this is going to be our first in our order of least to greatest. All right, and then we look the next largest. We have 2 that have 4, but which one is smaller? One that has 0 hundredths or 2 hundredths? The one that has 0 hundredths. So this would be our next largest. Okay, and then the other 4 is less than 6, so this would be our next largest, 3/7. That would go third, and our largest is 3/5 because it has a 6 in the tenths place. So that is the largest. This is for on level. Sorry, I should have made that clear, Mr. Hutchison. This is going to be for on level. So we talked about today, a lot of students were trying their best to go the fraction route because they thought that was going to be easier. They get a little intimidated by long division, but it's just a skill that you got to have, and it makes comparing these numbers a lot easier. Let's look at number 21, and I'm going to make it look a lot neater because this kind of got in our way. So I'm going to do 21 with you guys. All right, 21. We're comparing 5/8. We're comparing 3/4. We're comparing 1/2. And we're comparing 9/16. If we look back here, remember we said if you could see that one number is a factor of the largest, then that is very helpful. You can find the least common denominator. We have that similarity here. 2 goes into 16, 4 goes into 16, 8 goes into 16. So we could make them all have 16 as a denominator. But for now's sake, if I'm just going to stick to decimals so that it doesn't get any more confusing. Okay. But this is one where fractions I believe would be easier, but I'm just going to try to stick with what we're doing here with decimals. So if we're going to make 5/8, it's 5 divided by 8. I'm going to come over here and do 3 divided by 4. I'm going to come over here and do 1 divided by 2, and I'm going to come over here and do 9 divided by 16. Okay. None of these divisors go into the dividend, so I'm just going to make my life easier and go ahead and put decimals. And I'm going to try to find the first place value. 8 goes into 50 6 times. We get 48. 4 goes into 30 7 times. We get 28. 2 goes into 10 5 times. And 16 goes into 90. This is one where like 16 times 4 is 64. Add 16 to that, we get 80, right? So if you didn't know, you just come over here and say, I think maybe 5 times. That would have been a good guess. 5 times 1, you get 80. So it goes in 5 times. So what do we notice about this one? We're ordering from least to greatest. So we have 2 that have 5/10, that's the least. We have 6 and we have 7. So we already know that 3/4 is going to be our largest. We're going to put a 4 right here so that goes last because it has the largest tenths value. Then we have 6 in the tenths. So 5/8 is going to be our next largest. So I'm just going to go ahead and get those out of the way. These are the two that are going to be a little more difficult because they have the same tenths value. But we can see 2 went into 10 evenly. So there are no hundredths. 16 did not go into 90 evenly. There's going to be some remainder. Okay. There's going to be 16 goes into 100, and it's going to be 6 times because we could get another 16 in there. And now we're good. As soon as you see that there's different place values, stop. Don't work this all the way out. So 5/10 but 0 hundredths is less than 6 hundredths. So that means that 1/2 is going to be my least here. And 9/16 is going to be my second least, and so on. What's up, Kevin? So, Addie, yes, if you missed the beginning, this page was what I intended to be homework. I wrote down an incorrect page. It's like some random page with examples for a future lesson. So I said if you did that already, then you're good to go. Otherwise, this is page 135. All right. All right. Now that we talked about decimals, if you understand that and you like that, then ignore what I'm about to say or give it a shot. And if it's confusing, then just stick with decimals. But remember what I said. If you notice that they all share a common factor, that's a very easy opportunity to make common denominators. You would say, what do I have to do to 8 to get 16? I have to multiply by 2. Whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. So we get 10/16. All right. What do I have to do to 4 to get 16? I have to multiply by 4. And whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. So we get 12/16. What do we do to 2 to get 16? We multiply by 8. Whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. And we get 8/16. So then we have our normal 9/16. We don't have to change that because it is 9/16. All right, so is this still the smallest? Yes, 8 out of 16 is still the least. Is this the next least? Yes, 9 out of 16, then 10 out of 16, and 12 out of 16. So that took us a lot less time than this. But your responsibility is getting the right answer. So if you want to make them all decimals every time, because that's what I was saying in class today. You can do that every time without fail. This, if you're not familiar with your rules of divisibility or familiar with how to find GCFs and LCMs, I would work on learning that before you use that method. If decimals are good for you and you want to stick with that, then stick with decimals by all means. Let's see, I'm going to do one more because I am running out of time. Got to be somewhere. Let's look at, let's look at number 24. Again, we're going least to greatest. This is not going very smooth, these lives. Because of time, I didn't want it to take 20 minutes to upload, so that's why I'm going live, in case you're wondering. Number 25, or 24, I'm sorry. Number 24, we don't have all fractions. We have 0.4. We have 5/8, and we have 38%. Well, guess what? I still recommend getting everything to decimals because it's so easy. Once you learn to do it, you can do it with every problem that you're ordering. So the good news is 0.4 is already in decimal form. What's next easiest is what we asked ourselves in class. Which one is the next easiest to get in decimal form? Well, we agreed that percent is because you just have to move the decimal over. I shouldn't have boxed this in. But you move the decimal 2 times to the left, again, because if you're going from percent in alphabetical order to decimals, you're going to the left. So 1, 2. So we get 0.38. Okay, and then 5/8, we'll do like we did above. 5 divided by 8. 8 goes into 50 6 times. And I could keep going, or I could notice that my first place value and all my numbers are the tenths, and they're all different. So that's all I need to know. So let's look. We have 3, 4, and 6 tenths. 3 tenths is going to be the least. So I'm going to order them right here. So that means that 38% is our least. Put 1 there if we want. All right, and then 4 tenths is less than 6 tenths. So 4 tenths is our second least. And then 6 tenths is the greatest, and it's the only one left. So 5/8 is the largest. All right, we got 4 people on. One of them is in a different class, which is interesting. Mr. Duncan. But I'm gonna wait a minute. If you have any questions about any of them, then I will wait a second to see if you have any before I log off. Or any questions about the ones I've done. Ah, cool. Callaway's there. My head is still trying to wrap around the fact that 0.9 repeating is 1. I'm sure there's research and stuff about that. I'm going to have to go home and look at that, but that's been driving me nuts. That's from our 7th grade accelerated. Is there any other one that anyone sees problems with? Addie, Mr. Hudson or Riley? Anybody? All right. I'm going to get off here then. And if you do have any issues, email me. I'm about to get in the car though, so it won't be for at least another hour or so. But sorry again about the homework mix up. But we'll deal with it in class tomorrow. We're going to keep practicing this. All right. Take care.